by talking to you guys, but that's sort of part of my piece here. Actually, let me take off my shoes since I'm inside the house. See, growing up, my mom always told me that if I wear my shoes inside the house, I would bring in the dirt from outside, so we would always be poor. So I always listened to my mother. So my name is Truong, and today I will be presenting stories that my parents have shared with me from their journey from Vietnam as a refugee to Indonesia and then coming here to the US. These are stories that I've collected over the years, since I was 6 years old till 31 today, so they've been reluctant to share these stories because they were always afraid of the trauma that they went through that they didn't want to share with us. But now since I'm older, they're more willing to share these stories, and so I'm happy to be here to present some of these stories to you. I was born in Vietnam in November 22nd, 1977, and while I was growing up, I always heard my mother always proclaiming to my sister, because like if she didn't clean her room, she would always say, if you don't clean that room, your dad gave birth to you. He can take you back. And I was just like, my dad gave birth to my sister. Okay, so I took note of that, So one day we were in school, and my school teacher was teaching us about sexual education, and she was telling us that only women can give birth. I had my hands up high. I was like, actually, my dad gave birth to my sister. And all my classmates were just laughing, and my teacher was laughing too. I was just like, no, only women can give birth. So I left class that day very confused, I remember going into the store with my mom one day, and standing by the newsstand, I saw one of those National Enquirer, and it said, "Man gives birth to twins." I was like, "Oh, you see, my teacher's wrong." But as I got older, I realized, that there's something wrong with this. People keep telling me only women can give birth. So I decided to ask my mom the truth. What did you mean by dad giving birth to my sister? So my mom told me this story, and this is the first story I heard from her about Vietnam and our journey. So I came in and I asked her, so what do you mean by that dad gave birth to my sister? And she looked at me and she said, well, you see, we were refugees from Vietnam and we were escaping, and we had ended up in Malaysia, where we were supposed to dock, but the problem was that the Malaysian government told us that we couldn't dock there because there was too many refugees there, and so we had to keep going. And so as we got back on the boat to go to the next island, which is Indonesia, these Malaysian pirates knew that refugees were coming through, so they would ram into the boats and rob all the Vietnamese people on there. And on this boat, there were about 75 people, and there was a doctor on board as well. And they had taken everything. They took the doctor's glasses so you couldn't see, all the money, all the gold that we had saved. So I was in labor with your sister, like about 3 days later, and the doctor was supposed to help me deliver this child. The doctor was really angry that he had nothing left. So he said, I'm not doing anything, I'm just gonna sit here and just pout my lip. And then so my dad got really upset. Or your dad got really upset, and all the people on the boat, start to yell at the doctor, saying, if you don't help this woman out, we're gonna throw you overboard. So the doctor said, well, I can't see anyway, but you know what? I'll guide you through the words, and you'll deliver your own child. And then that's what happened. So basically, your dad was helping me through the labor, through the doctor's instruction, and that's how your dad gave birth to your sister. And I was like, okay, so my dad gave birth to my sister. I see. And I got more curious because that was the first time I learned, that I was a refugee. I had no idea what a refugee was, and so I did some more research on that as well. And I started to ask more questions. And so I asked my mom. I was like, well, why did we escape Vietnam? And she told me that back after the Vietnam War, my dad had 12 siblings, and by the end of the war, there was only 3 of them left. And so my grandma had told him, look, I've seen war before. And after war, the economy will collapse, and there's still going to be battle around. And Vietnam, during that time, after the American War as well, decided to attack Cambodia. And so they were starting to recruit more men again. And so my dad said, I can't stay here if I want my family to survive. And so he decided to go buy a boat. And he started to talk to people in the village and see who wanted to leave with him, because you couldn't take this journey on your own. And so he was able to gather 75 people to pay some money to get enough gasoline to survive this 2-week trip to Malaysia and then Indonesia. And so they all decided that they would meet in the forest at night. And my mother and dad split. My dad went to the ocean, got on the boat, and my mom was going to meet in the forest with a bunch of other people. So my mom was driving her motorcycle with me and my cousin. And she got to the forest, parked her bike, and walked in, and she was meeting up with all the other people. And as they were walking through the forest, they heard some soldiers walking around, and the child started to cry, and so everyone panicked, and they started to run. And so my mom grabbed me and my cousin and just ran deep into the forest and came to a house, and there was a woman out there. Luckily thing, this woman recognized my mom. It was her aunt, and so she told us to come in for shelter. And so we went in there, and she fed us, and my mom calmed down after a while, but then she realized that she had no idea where my dad was. So the next morning when she woke up to go out, she couldn't go back to the village because she had left for the night already. If she went back, the soldiers would be, with kind of questions like, well, where were you the night before? And she might get arrested for that, so she had to stay there. And so she stayed there and went out to see if she could find any information about where about my dad was, but she couldn't find anything. 2 weeks later, she was in the river washing clothes, and suddenly she looks up and she sees this boat coming by. And my dad was on the boat, and he was searching for her. I guess he's been searching for her this whole week. And somehow, by coincidence or by luck or by God, whatever, we were able to reunite. And our second attempt was more of a success. So everyone was able to get on the boat and escape. And so that's how I learned about my plight from Vietnam to basically Malaysia. And I guess my dad also told me that when we got to Malaysia, when the pirates had rammed their boat into our boat, they had caused a big crack, and so the boat started to flood, and everyone started to panic, and so they were trying to scoop the water out as fast as they could. And my dad, he just basically looked at this, and it was like to him, it was a death sentence, that there was no use, there was no way of saving us. So he said, you know what, just grab our son, and we'll just lay down, go to sleep, and we wake up, it'll be over. And I guess as he was laying there, he looked over and he saw this huge plastic bag. And then it just hit him, he was like, you know what, we can take this plastic bag and stuff the hole with it. So he grabbed all the men on the boat, and they were able to stuff the hole and save the boat from there. But the issue too was that there was another boat that was right next to us that also got rammed in, and their boat was sinking faster than ours. And what they saw was about 65 people swimming towards our boat, but we couldn't take any more on the boat. So my dad said they had to leave them there and just go off, because if they climb on board, our ship would sink too. So he said that he has no idea what happened to the 65 people on the boat. They probably died out there too. So this journey was very, very dangerous during that time. My first memory ever was actually, I was about probably 4 years old, and I was on the boat, and this is after the pirate had basically robbed us of everything, but just left us enough food to be able to eat to survive for that week to Indonesia. And so we were rationing it, and we hadn't eaten for about maybe 2 days, and we decided, we're gonna cook some rice because we're almost there, everyone's gonna eat. And so I got a bowl of rice, and I ate it so fast I had the hiccups. And my mom told my cousin to run downstairs and grab me a glass of water. So he ran downstairs and he dipped the cup into the barrel of water and brought it back up. But the issue was that the barrel of water was also next to the barrel of gasoline. And so he had dipped it into the gasoline by accident, brought it up and gave it to me, and I just drunk it down. Next thing I remember was that it was a burning sensation down my throat, and my world was spinning and spinning and spinning, and then I started to throw up, and then I blacked out. And my next memory after that was I just woke up and I was playing with crabs. And, it was just like blacked out, wake up, crab. It's kind of like one of those deals. And my mother used to feed us Vietnamese food all the time. And growing up in America, I grew up in Humboldt Park, so I went to all Puerto Rican schools. I had a lot of Puerto Rican food, so it was very different from Vietnamese food. And my mom one day decided to serve us fish with a fish head on it, And she's eating the eyeball, and she's like, this eyeball is very good for you. You should have one. It's good for your eye. I was like, Mom, I'm not gonna eat no eyeball. She's like, what do you mean you're not gonna eat no eyeball? You ate monkey. I was like, I ate monkey? What do you mean by that? So decided one day, it's like, well, what do you mean I ate monkey? He's like, go ask your dad. So I did. I went outside, and my dad was out there trying to fix, the lawn mowing machine because it was busted. The thing about my dad is that for some reason he always likes just to wear his boxer and nothing else outside. and so I came out there, he's in his boxer. I was like, Dad, you should put some pants on. He's like, pants? In Vietnam, nobody wears pants, I was like, but we're not in Vietnam anymore. And so he's trying to fix this lawnmower, and he pulls out the fuse and he's blowing on it. That's also my dad's solution for everything. Is just blow on it, it'll get fixed, The food is too hot, blow on it. You have something in your eye, blow on it. The TV isn't working, blow on it, So he's blowing on it, trying to fix it. And so they're asking him, like, Dad, so Mom said that I had monkey before. How do you catch a monkey, My dad said, well, it's tricky to catch a monkey. Actually, I have a story about how not to catch a monkey. And so he told me the story about how him and my uncle were in the forest, and we've had eaten, but we hadn't had meat. We just had fish and rice. And so they were in the forest, scavenging for some food, and they saw this little monkey. It was sitting there and was playing with a stick. And I think it was like sticking to an ant hole, trying to eat the ant. And so my dad and uncle said, hey, look, we can catch that monkey. We'll have a monkey tonight. And so they decided to try to corner the monkey. But the monkey, he looked up and he saw them coming across. So he got up and he started to run. And the monkey ran deep in the forest. And my uncle chased after this monkey and finally cornered the monkey on a tree. And the monkey was breathing really hard. And then finally the monkey just calmed down and stopped. And my dad and uncle just looked at each other and looked at the monkey. And the monkey looked at them. And the monkey looked up into the trees. And my dad and uncle looked up in the tree and saw this whole tribe of monkeys coming down. And they were breaking branches and hitting branches together. And my dad and uncle knew that they couldn't catch this monkey, so they ran out there. And the whole tribe just chased them out of the forest. So that was how not to catch a monkey, according to my dad. So these stories they're still a work in progress because because since I'm starting to collect more stories from them. They're actually more open now to share these stories. I actually have a recording with them, like in 2 weeks, so that they can start give me more details on the stories. But I'm gonna give you one last story that my mom told me when she was a child. And this story, she was about probably 12 years old, and this is right during the time when the war was hitting her village in Giau, which is like about 9 hours south of Saigon. And she was 9 years old and she had this best friend. And when she was on the street, she used to have a chant, and she used to sell these sort of wrap cakes. They're called bánh bao in Vietnamese, but they're wrap cakes. And she had this chant on the street that she did. And the chant went something like this. Bánh bao, ai muốn mua bánh bao. Ông muốn mua bánh bao không, cho em tiền đi mua bánh bao đi. And I used to sell them with the rice seller and the shoe seller. And we used to come out here every single day to sell our items, and people would come out and buy them. My best friend Tweet at that time would come out after work to take me on all these great adventures. And no matter what we did, we always laughed. Like whenever she would trip, I would laugh. And whenever I would trip, she would laugh. I remember one night, we decided to sneak out to the ocean. And it was dark outside. The only thing lighting our path was the moon and the stars. See, my best friend Tweet, she's a little crazier than I am. So she stripped off all her clothes and ran and embraced the water, waving at me to come join her. But I'm a little shyer than my friend Tweet. So I looked around to make sure nobody was watching as I unbuttoned my shirt and stripped off my clothes. And I walked slowly towards that water, still looking to make sure nobody was watching. The water was cold, and my best friend Tweet sat there laughing at me. And how funny I looked embracing my body. And then I began to laugh with her. And we sat there for hours just laughing and talking under the stars. One day, we were at school, and I was sitting at my school desk reading my school book. My best friend Tweet was sitting to my right, staring out the window. There was a quiet hum. It got louder. And louder. And the books began to tremble. And And that was when the first bomb hit. And the children, they all got up and they ran out the door. And I too was about to run out the door. And I saw my best friend Twee sitting there crying. So I ran back and I grabbed her in my arm and we ran outside. And that was when we noticed the sky. It was black, filled with planes of bombs came one after another to the sewers, to the sewers, to the shelters. That's where we're supposed to go. So we ran there and we hid there until the bombing and the humming stopped. Bombing and the humming did stop. The war continued. And my best friend Twee became ill after that day. She became very ill. And all the doctors in the village were called in, but none of them could find a cure for her. Then one day, a rumor was spreading through the village, saying that my best friend Twee was possessed by demons. So the witch doctor was called in, and the witch doctor, he came, and in his left hand, he held an empty jar, and in his right, a cat. And he walked up to Twee, and he said, "Go, ne, go, mutt!" She was possessed. And he grabbed her hand, and he began to chant, "Go, ne, mung ye, go, ne, dido, go, ne, lam ye!" And he grabbed the cat in his right hand, pulled it to his mouth, and bit the neck, and spat it into the jar, and sealed it. "Go, ne, hong, go, ye, na!" And she was healed. My best friend Twee was healed that day. She wasn't the same. She didn't laugh the same way. We didn't go on all the great adventures we used to go on. So we grew further and further apart. You see, you can get used to the cold water, and you can get used to war, but you can never get used to losing a friend. Thank you.